Hello and welcome to Cheap Joe's. My name is Julie and I'm here to impart some knowledge to you today via a 2-minute art tip. However, this one is, I can warn you right now, is not going to be 2 minutes. Today I want to talk to you a little bit about a total overview of colored pencil. We carry several brands. I'm going to be talking about just a few today and giving you kind of like a little bit of a compare and contrast. So to help newcomers to the media shop a little bit, get a feel for what each of them kind of does, what their specialty area is, and maybe a little bit of a hint if something maybe wouldn't suit your style or the way that you work, or give you a heads up if you don't even know how you work yet in this medium. A little bit of information to help you kind of shop to get you to what you need from the get-go. So I can tell you that, like, if I were to say that I had an area, colored pencil would probably be the area that I would point to as my favorite. This is some of my work here. There are, several brands and different kinds of techniques shown here. Probably you as an art consumer are most familiar with Prismacolor. It's been around forever. It is a very well-known brand. I grew up with it. That's what I learned with in high school and then on in college and stuff like that. And it wasn't until I came to work here that I found out about others. But Prismacolor has its place. It's very strong. It's got powerful color delivery onto the surface. And it's really almost more like a crayon than it is actually a pencil, in that the base for what holds the pigment together is actually wax. So one of the problems that you may encounter when you use Prismacolor is that with that color immediacy, where you get direct, bright, bold color without a whole lot of effort, the drawback to the wax base is that you have an issue where the wax will build up over time, and so you get what's called wax bloom, and that is with 3 or 4 sequential layers in the same area, the wax comes to the surface and the pigment lays down, and so you have a little bit of a frost that you have to deal with. And for me, I kind of always compensated and worked around that and didn't understand how much of an issue it was until I didn't have to kind of deal with it anymore. But Prismacolor works great, and a lot of designers use Prismacolor because they like that you don't have to spend a whole lot of time to build up, bold, rich color. It's pretty quick and stuff like that. But you are kind of limited in how much layering you can do and blending because, you got about 3 or 4 layers and then you run into a problem. So that's kind of where Prismacolor falls in that. Prismacolor is kind of in the medium, the lower range as far as price point and stuff like that. So, that gives you kind of like a little bit of idea where that falls. For a long time, Derwent has been available. Derwent colored pencils have been around for quite a while. What I can say for Derwent, like their standard colored pencils, is that they're a little bit harder. They tend to, the color lays down a little bit softer and you don't get as much immediacy, so you really have to kind of work at it in order to build up your bold, rich colors. The problem that I have found with Derwent in the past is that there's a little bit of whatever they're binding it with has grit in it, and so sometimes you'll be working and you're laying down color and you hear this and so you'll get this line where a little piece of that grit actually like comes out of the pencil and scratches the surface of your paper. So Derwent, even though it's a Winsor & product, I have found not to be my favorite because I don't want to have to think about that kind of stuff. I don't want to have that kind of technical issue. There are others that, find Derwent to be completely suitable. However, just for me, not my favorite. But Derwent does have a new colored pencil line that they're out there introducing. We've had it for a little while, called Derwent Inktense. And this is interesting because instead of like a standard colored pencil, this is very different in that the pigments are inks, which means it's water soluble. So it's a lot like a watercolor pencil in that way, where you can draw with it like a colored pencil, wet it with water, and it activates, and you can treat it like an ink. The colors are vibrant. It's a little on the soft side, but you know, it blends very well. And so you can kind of see how, you know, the colors don't lay right on top of each other. They kind of interact with each other, which is a nice nuance. And so the Inktense seems to be a much more forgiving pencil than the standard Derwent one. So I like that one better. Then Caran has come out with one called Luminance, which I find to be pretty interesting. This one is really different. Their big claim to fame for this line is that they've got like 71 colors in the line, and 67 of them are a light fastness rating at the highest level that you possibly can get. So their real you know, sticking point that they're flying their flag around about is, you know, the light fastness, and that's great. But I feel like there's other things that in terms of execution and feel that are as important. The pencils are kind of a different feel that I'm not used to, but it's a really nice point. It holds a really nice point. It works well on all kinds of different surfaces. The only thing that was kind of a problem for me was that it does take a while to get the colors to build. They kind of sit right on top of one another, so you're not getting the benefit of a whole lot of show through from the color that's underneath it. You're just kind of having to work it, and it does take quite a while for them to build up and get the richness going in there that you want, because, you know, it takes a little bit. But very nice pencil. They're very well made. They're balanced well. The construction is gorgeous. It's Caran, so don't be surprised. They're on the higher end. They're fairly expensive, and I have a feeling it's probably because of the pigments and the light fastness, and, you know, the way that those pigments are selected. They're the higher end stuff. But the pencils are sort of hard and a little bit, it's a longer term commitment when you're trying to execute with those. Lastly, I want to talk about one of my favorite brands, and I'm blatantly biased about it and can't hide it. I have used Faber Castell for a long time, many years, and it's one of my favorites because of the behavioral characteristics of it. One of the things about Faber that I absolutely love is the ability to kind of endlessly layer color. I'm kind of like a very slow, kind of, you know, kind of pensive overthinker when I'm working a lot of the times, and so Faber works well in that you can build up layers slowly without the side effect of a lot of other color pencil lines that are wax based, where you don't have to work within the constraints of having like 3 or 4 layers before you have to deal with wax bloom or a buildup of wax that leaves a sheen on the top. With Faber, because they're oil based instead, they actually don't have that characteristic of the bloom or that sheen that builds up. So you can layer and layer and layer and do all kinds of stuff. And the other thing that I really like about Faber, and you can kind of see it in this one, this is actually Faber Castell Polychromos on like a Crescent 300 illustration board. Initially what I did was I put a couple of thin layers of golden acrylic down, and that was to fill in the tooth so I wasn't competing with the white of the paper all the time, so I didn't have those like little white dots that I was having to fight all the time. But I also do the same thing with Faber Castell's Albrecht Dürer watercolor pencil, where I will actually do some under layers and then wet it with, activate it with a wet brush, and then allow the watercolor pencil to fill in all of the tooth, and then come back and do, switch back and forth between the two, and a lot of times finish with the Polychromos on the top because it's a little bit more firm and you can get a lot more detail. But Polychromos is great because it works on so many different surfaces, like this one here. This is actually our Miller's signature gessoed wood panel, and as you can see, the colored pencil works great on that. So Faber is, by far one of my favorites. I've been using a long time. This is another piece that's with the Faber Polychromos, but the ability to layer, the ability to execute on all different kinds of surfaces, and the level of detail that you can get, and the subtlety of the color change is really, really kind of magnificent. So if you haven't tried Faber, you should definitely take a look at it. If you haven't tried color pencil, definitely take a look at it. It's a great companion media to you know, watercolor and other drawing media. So definitely check out colored pencil. It is fantastic, and we know that you're going to love it. So enjoy.